Hello and welcome to our video on money printing. Today we will discuss how new money is created in the economy and what are their consequences. Before we begin, let us introduce you to the concept of fiat currency. Fiat currency is a government-issued currency which is not backed by any commodity. Its value arises simply due to the force of the government and trust which people put in their governments, and hence the currency itself. Almost all major countries and economies have fiat currencies. For example, the US dollar does not have a lot of value on and by itself. It is either paper or electronic in form. Its value arises only from the fact that other people are willing to accept it as a store of value in exchange for some goods and services. It is like a legal contract which says that bearer is entitled to certain value. There are two ways fiat currency gets created in the economy. The first is when banks give out loans, and the second is when the central bank buys government bonds from the open market. Let's go over the first mechanism first. Contrary to how a lot of people understand, banks do not take deposits so that they can lend that money out to others. This is a false understanding of how the modern banking system works. Banks are special institutions, and when they give out loans to anyone, they do not give out loans from reserves they have from other deposits. They just create new money by adding new electronically created money in the account of the loan seeker. But this process is kept in check by regulations. For example, banks cannot create new money for anything else. For example, they cannot issue loan to themselves to buy some real estate assets and make other investments. Similarly, if the loanee fails to repay the loan, the bank will have to bear the loss from their own pockets. This puts incentives on them to ensure that they do not hand out bad loans. Banks also have to maintain a certain amount of capital, known as capital requirements, which regulates how much loan they can give out. For example, hypothetically, for every $100 of loans they issue, the capital requirements can enforce that they must have $80 of actual assets and savings. This restricts how much new money can be created in the economy. Against popular belief, it's capital requirements and not reserve requirements, which control a bank's ability to create new money, and is a subject for another video in more detail. You can read more about it, however, in the link shared below. When the loanee at the end of the loan term pays back the loan principal is destroyed just the way it was created and the interest is kept by the bank as profit. This brings the economy back to its original state. This mechanism of loans is generally productive as it allows the economy to expand and contract flexibly. If the economic activity is increasing, then there is demand for more currency to facilitate trade. Cheap loans will facilitate people's access to this new currency. More currency will enter the economy, and this is a good thing as long as it is in proportion to the increase in economic activity. For example, if the economy has 10 people and they produce and exchange 10 apples and 10 bananas every day, they might make it work using $10 bills. But if the economy grows and the number of people increases from 10 to 20, and they produce 20 apples and 20 bananas every day, they might need $20 bills to make everything work seamlessly. Otherwise, the economy will enter into deflation, which is a topic of much debate and a subject for another video. The second mechanism by which new money is created is called quantitative easing. This happens when the central bank buys government bonds from other people who have bought the bonds earlier. In doing so, they can print new money which they credit to the accounts of the people who are selling the bonds. Only the central bank has the power to do this. No one else, even other banks, cannot buy government bonds or any other asset by printing new money. The idea is that, firstly, the government will issue bonds into the open market. Then the central bank will buy those bonds from the people who first bought it from the government, and they do so by creating more money. Overall end state is that the government now has more new money which they can put to use. The open market process is used so that practical prices of bonds can be determined instead of the central bank buying bonds at arbitrary values. In theory, this is still fine. The goal is that over time, the government will collect this money back using taxes so they can pay the interest over the bonds. This principal and interest is then paid back to the central bank. The central bank will destroy the principle just the way it first created it. The interest is either used to pay expenditures of the bank itself, like salaries of employees, etc., or given back to the government in some form. But in the end, things should all work out well. However, the problem with this process is that every time new money is created, increases income and purchasing power for a lot of people, especially the upper and upper middle class folks. And this drives up inflation, especially property prices and other investments like stocks, as these people rush to buy them with their increased purchasing power. This is a problem, as though income increases for everyone due to the newly printed money, but it does not increase proportionally. And economists argue that this process of new money creation by governments helps the rich get richer and only widens the wealth gap even further. In addition, very often governments are not able to pay back these bonds. The only way to pay back the bonds, then, is to issue new bonds, and this creates a perpetual Ponzi scheme, which, like any Ponzi scheme, will eventually end up badly. The only problem is that governments can keep up with this for a lot longer than an average charlatan, sometimes even for decades. A new economic theory called modern monetary theory, or MMT, argues that the government can print as much money as it wants and even encourages the process of money creation. The theory is highly controversial, and a lot of economists fear that it gives governments incorrect justification to create unsustainable and irresponsible fiscal deficits and give free handouts to people to stay in power. The jury is still out on if MMT is a legit or a flawed theory. In summary, our takeaway is that creation of short-term new money is the norm of how all modern economies function. This is called debt-based economic systems, as the process starts by creating new money in the form of loans. As long as the loans are paid back, the process is stable and gives flexibility to the economy to easily expand and shrink the money supply based on the amount of economic activity and avoid deflation in the process. In conclusion, these are complicated processes, and their true repercussions are not always correctly understood. There is a reason why even the best economists do not always agree on these subjects. It is possible that processes like quantitative easing, which are used to supposedly protect the people, end up hurting the lower middle and lower classes more than they help. Thank you.